again. Um, I'm back and I'm going to be talking about managing an FTC team. So, oh no, there we go. Okay, so in this presentation, we'll be covering common management styles, facilitating discussions, and tracking progress. First of all, common management styles. So, I'm going to be talking about like two main styles right here because there's two pretty common styles. The first one is called waterfall. It's called that because it kind of like flows like a waterfall. And it goes rigidly from one phase to the next. Like the water doesn't start defying gravity and go back up. It's very intuitive, but sequential and like rigid structure. So there's because the water doesn't start defying gravity, it's kind of difficult because anything in previous stages can affect what happens next. And you can't skip steps. So if one thing isn't complete, then or isn't done well, then it'll cause issues later because everything is reliant on that. The benefit of it though is that it's easier to use than agile management, which is the other style I will talk about. I'm sure if you go into businesses, you'll like have a lot more detail on these management styles than I can provide because I just read like a textbook or something and did like a little bit of research. But it's like this degree stuff is probably good enough for robotics usage at least. Like I said earlier, con is that anything that happens earlier down the line impacts other stages, whether that's late due dates or something else like that. Because, for instance, an example of waterfall management style is that the if build isn't done doing their part, then programming cannot program their part. So if build takes a really long time and gets it done like a week before the competition, then programming is going to have a really bad time. Trying to code everything a week before. Totally not from experience. Management styles. So the second one is agile. A good thing about it is it's very flexible. As you can see in the picture, it's a loop. So the idea of it is that it's you can repeat it and you kind of test and refine, and it has a very it's very low stakes. So if something goes wrong during one of the cycles, then each cycle is only a small part of it. So it's not that big of a deal and you can fix things. Or not very much gets like thrown away because of it. If you look at it, it does kind of also reflect the engineering design process, which we will talk about in a different presentation, probably. Yes. And the idea is that it utilizes sprints, which are like short periods of time in which you try to complete a certain amount of stuff. And then you also have stand-up meetings. And in stand-up meetings, they're named that because in some places you actually have the people stand up so that the meetings are really fast. The idea is to have a really quick update on everyone's progress. And so that way you can continuously refine and understand what you are doing. The downside to it in usage of robotics is that it requires a lot of management though, because there's stand-up meetings and there's sprints and you have to figure out what's a reasonable amount of work to put into the time period of a sprint, and you have to figure out what is everyone doing, and it's kind of a lot to keep track of, but it is really good to have something flexible and to have something that has like low stakes for each chunk of the process. Facilitating discussions. So if you're a project manager for your team, you'll probably have to lead discussions around, whether that's to set agendas for the day, work on goal setting or postmortem discussions. For instance, we have postmortem discussions after each competition in which we talk about like what went well, what didn't go well, and what we should work on for next time. We also might have to pitch ideas as project managers, and we might have to present progress because it's important for everyone on the team to know what's going on. So to do that, sometimes if you're the project manager, you'll be the one keeping track of where everyone is at, and you can tell the entire team what's going on with everyone else's projects for good communication. Similarly to what I recommended in a different presentation about public speaking in general, it's a good idea to have an outline for major points you want to hit, just so you don't miss anything. And I know that tangents are a huge issue in our team because they spring up often, and it's really important to address them, but sometimes it's not the time. So I know that our team, for example, has tried to use something like tangent board, which is where people write down the tangents they have and we address them later. So then things don't get lost because new things keep getting brought up without resolving the things that we were already talking about. It can also be helpful to have time approximations for each topic because otherwise people might get hung up on things, and everyone wants to have what they are thinking set out because sure they have really important topics to talk about, but it's kind of hard to reach everything, and if the meetings run too long, people get bored and stop paying attention. And it's also really frustrating because it's hard to get work done if the tangents and if the meeting just keeps running on forever. Tracking progress. So there are a bunch of online Kanban boards that you can use, which are like Trello, ClickUp Monday, where you can have sections for what you want to work, what the backlog is, what you want to work on next, things in progress and finished things. It's important to have those to be able to keep track of progress. It's important to have frequent meetings about progress, which kind of goes back to the stand-up meetings. They shouldn't take too long. And meeting summaries are really important to have for anyone who isn't at the meetings. Just so people don't miss a meeting or a few meetings if they're on vacation or sick, and then come back and have absolutely no clue what's going on. So our team currently has started like a new type of way to track progress, which is a physical board in which we write like sticky notes with drops on like the tasks on them, and we pin them to the board. It's kind of like a physical Kanban board, I guess. But the idea is that any way to track progress so things don't get lost or incompleted or stay incomplete. Like if someone starts a project and then just never finishes it because they get interested in something else or think that they passed it on to someone else. So it's important to not lose track of any of the work that happens. Also timelines are great for keeping people on track. We usually talk about what we want to have done by each meet, and then we have a timeline. So for instance, if we want to be able to hang by meet 0, then we write down the timeline and like approximately the time that it will have to be done by. And a lot of other things about like build and similar goals like that. Cool. Any questions? You can type them in the chat or you can just unmute and speak. Cool, yeah. So if you have any questions that like you have it that you think of later. Oh, ooh, there's a question. Oh, sorry. Okay, so yeah, so we aren't actually using a Kanban board. I know that a lot of teams probably do use like online Kanban boards because it's pretty easy to use. But we're going to our team is using a physical board in which we like have sticky notes, and we put the sticky notes on the backlog, next, work in progress or done section. And on it we have like what defines done for the project, what is the project, how long will it take, who's working on the project. And that way we're able to, it's also like kind of satisfying to be able to like see the board, like move it over, and people pay more attention to it because we kind of forgot about it when we tried using online boards before. We have a lot of other documentation as well. I think we'll probably be, I'm guessing we'll be covering our documentation more in like the EP and JP presentation about like, because it's important to know what's going on. So project management, the kind of difference between like project management is and like the I guess it would be no, it's also project management. Well, this section of project management is more for making sure work doesn't disappear. It's not for like tracking or Kanban boards aren't for tracking the overall status of the team. It's not what's about like what's done, but it's more about what's going on right now and when are people going to finish it. So for documentation, what we have is we have Google Docs in which we write like monthly, like we keep notes for the month, and then we write little summaries of what happened, what important developments occurred during the month. And that way you have a broader overview of what's happening during the year, and you're able to talk about it in your judging presentation and your engineering portfolio. Okay,